Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Victor Macke and this is the video that coincides with how I produced my version of the 1/64 scale General Lee. As you can see, I started with the Hot Wheels version of the 1969 Dodge Charger from 2019. This is the race team Charger number 243 of 250. As you can see, it does make a pretty convincing General Lee once it's completed, but there are a couple of glaring issues. First off is the enlarged rear wheel well. Now, the General Lee did not have that. They did it for the toy to accommodate for the larger wheel, which you'll see in a moment. Another major glaring issue is that the General Lee and all Chargers really did not have fender flares on them. Well, first things first, let's get started on tapping out the studs. Now this can be a delicate process and should be not taken very lightly either. If you drill too far into the plastic, you're going to have issues putting the model back together later. You'll see that I test 2 or 3 or 4 times to make sure that I haven't drilled too far in. It's difficult to judge sometimes how far out the stud has gone. Once both studs have been freed up, I will separate the body like so. You'll notice that this particular version of the Charger has an engine. That's because this Charger used to have an opening hood, or well, at least this print did. I'll clean up my mess from drilling out the studs and we can actually get started on the alterations. Thankfully, the alterations to the frame are actually pretty simple. You've got to pop out the axles and wheels, and the rest of the alteration for the frame is pretty much just paint. The center section of this glass right here has to go, and I'll explain that later. In the meantime, let's get that body into stripper. Now, this is a spray-on stripper that I use called Orange Strip or Citrus Strip. Works very well, but it does take a long time, usually about 4 hours. Now, painting the frame isn't exactly difficult, but it does take quite a bit of patience. You'll see that I use paint markers for mine, but it is not required. This means that I will usually have to do 2 to 3 coats of paint for every bit of paint that goes on the frame. It looks like my orange is running out. That could be disastrous for somebody who's trying to alter more than one General Lee. Here I'm going to cut out the section between the rear window and the windshield for later gapping. Now, the reason I do this is because the roll bar that sits in the interior is too tall, and the interior will not sit on the frame if I don't cut this out. Since the orange has dried a little bit, I'm going to start doing the chrome around the grille and the rear bezel.
but she's got herself another plan. You may think you're being clever like a modern man, but Josie has the upper hand. It's so easy when you think you're winning, but she's got herself another plan. You may think you're being clever like some kind of modern man, but Josie has the upper hand. You may think you're being clever like a modern man, but Josie has the upper hand.
Now, as you can see, the paint stripper hasn't done its job yet, so I'm going to leave that for the night and give you this nifty black transition. Come back to it in the morning. Would you look at that? It's the morning, and the paint stripper has actually done its job. Now, I'll get the body out of the paint stripper bin and get all of the remaining paint off of the car. Now, while the paint stripper was doing its thing last night, I painted the interior tan, and I'm going to place one of my roll bars. Now, I only do a roll bar in mine, and this may not be entirely show accurate, but in many episodes, and according to John Schneider, you'll see that there are episodes where it's just a roll bar, not a complete cage. Here's the completed frame, including the license plate, which is screen accurate. Now I will paint up the chrome edges of my screen accurate 1/64 scale American Racing Vector rims. It's not bad, right? Now I apply the hand cut tires, and I'll have to do this 3 more times, of course. Any 1/64 scale geek will realize that these are the axles for the Hot Wheels. Now I'm going to test this and make sure that it fits okay, and then I'm going to glue it into the frame.
Secret flame, it burned in shame.
And through the magic of editing, all 4 tires have been applied and they look good. So the frame is done, the glass is done, the interior is done. What about that body? Well, I'm going to use a plastic rotary brush on it to clear off any remaining bits of paint, and then I'm going to use a steel rotary brush to clean the body, clean out the crevices, make it pretty so that I can send it to the paint booth. And as you can see here, the paint stripper has done its job well, except for right there on the rear quarter. That's okay, I will get that off with the steel brush. Now here's something that I'd like to show you that occurs on this particular print. Right here and right here are two flashings that come from the molding process. Now they can be ground down, but they are extremely difficult to do. I try to do the best that I can with a nail file to get them off. Please don't tell my wife I'm using her nail files. Any other flashing that may occur, try to get that off as well. And then we send it off to the paint booth. Yes, this is my paint booth. I'll hit it with some primer first, and once the primer is dry, I'll hit it with the classic orange. While the primer is drying, can anybody tell me what these three cars are and why they're important to the show? I don't know, I might even send you one. Alrighty, let's get back to that project. Well, I'd say that body looks pretty good. Let's get it in some decals and do up the turn signals and door handles and the gas cap. Any real fan of the show will be able to tell you where these decals are supposed to go. Now, the decals that I use do not include the crossed flags that were on the trunk lid. That's okay, because 90% of the General Lees that were used in the show didn't have them. Well, the body is complete now. Let's get on reassembly. First, I'll glue on that iconic push bar to the frame. Now I will glue the glass in. And now I will begin my first test fitting, make sure that everything fits together properly. You'll notice if you watch it that it does not. That's because I forgot to take a chunk off of the interior that was holding the frame out. Now I'm gluing the body together, obviously. And now it's time for the ancillary items, the antenna and the mirror that sits on the driver's side door. All right, that about does it. How about a reveal? Well, that does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, donate to our PayPal. Information on the screen. Thank you so much.